Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another episode of AJ Chats. Yes, today I'm going to be taking a look at the negative effect of the MCU. So let's get started, shall we? Okay, yeah, so this series, AJ Chats, this is my bi-weekly series where I just take a subject and I talk about it. I run with it. And the point of this is it gives me something to talk about. In that I'm not reviewing a film or a TV episode. I'm not showing something that I've bought or opening a box set or anything like this. It gets a discussion going, or may get a discussion going. It gets a little bit of talk. It gets a little bit of the brain thinking and this sort of stuff. So yeah, so we're going to do that. But before we do, I just want to have a little chat about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I posted a video called Blu-ray Collecting and COVID Conditioning, or something along those lines. That may not be a word-for-word title, but there we go. Now, I had a fantastic comment, and I needed to share this with you because I was blown away by this comment. So I got a comment here from someone called Boss BDSM Queen. Now, I do get a lot of hate comments, so I don't get a lot, I get a few, and this is one of them. This is, but I want to share this message with you because it just truly shows, you know, it highlights this individual's ineptitude, this individual's level of IQ and sheer stupidness. So, Boss BDSM Queen says, now bear in mind that this channel, or whatever you want to call it, this user had only just set up like literally a day before. So, you know, trolling and all that sort of stuff. So he goes, AJ shouldn't be talking about COVID. He should grow up and talk about proper topics. I didn't realise you were a doctor. So first of all, what can I say about that? Well, it highlights the fact that the video wasn't actually watched, and there's a lot of presumption in there because, well, COVID is a proper topic. It was very real. It still is very real. And, you know, people have died over it. You can't get any more real than that, regardless of your thoughts on it, whether you think it was all a big conspiracy theory and all this sort of crap and nonsense. It was very real. Go and ask people whose family, who'd lost loved ones because of it. It was very real. I should talk about proper topics, but what defines a proper topic? I don't know. But there we go. And this one here, I didn't realise you were a doctor. Well, you're right, I'm not a doctor. No, I'm not a doctor. But also, in the video, I didn't give no health advice because it wasn't about COVID in that respect. It was about how COVID had forced, you know, that the COVID period gave the companies that produce physical media nothing to produce because there were no films, and thusly they fell back on many of a back catalogue title to produce in a sort of special way, box specially and all this sort of thing. It had nothing to do with the health aspects of COVID or me giving any medical advice. So this individual, nay, shall I say idiot?
I'm an idiot! You're an idiot!
Had nothing logical to say there because he hadn't even watched the video. But that's what you're up against on here. So, but that did make me chuckle because it truly did show how stupid some people can be in their comments. And, you know, I love it. I love it. And I invite these people. I'd love him to come onto my live stream one day. I really would. Leave some more messages because they're just so stupid that they're fun to read. But anyway, that's that. Get on with that. So, the MCU, the negative effect of the MCU. So, again, what are you talking about, right? The MCU is one of the biggest franchises ever. It truly is. But is there a negative effect? Sorry if I'm a bit sniffly. Still a bit, I don't know. Is hay fever still about? I don't know. I think it is. But anyway, either that or I've got COVID. But I'm not a doctor, so I wouldn't know. But anyway, negative effect of the MCU. So, the MCU. obviously it kicked off in 2008 with Iron Man, and we are now here in 2022. 14 years later, we have a mass of movies, probably totaling 25, something like that now, maybe more, I don't know, and loads of TV series being thrown at us week after week. You can't get away from it. You can't get away from the MCU. But I'm not talking about a negative effect that's begun now. It's begun a long time ago. Now, when the MCU first started, it felt very rich. It felt very, it was new, it was fantastic. And believe me, there was a lot of excitement around it. When you had announcements for films such as Age of Ultron, Winter Soldier, Ragnarok, you're talking about Civil War, right? You're talking about films based around well-renowned, well-received comic books from not too long ago, actually. So Marvel were tapping into the comics industry. They were using some of the most prolific stories ever done, modern day stories ever done, to create their films from, and this gave them a rich tapestry, a rich insight. They had to do was take this pre-existing story and sort of rework it for their own means, right? And at the same time, you've generated this excitement within the comic book community who knew these stories. I mean, as soon as Winter Soldier was announced, I was so happy. I really was. Civil War, wow, fantastic. Age of Ultron, another one. Regardless of what you think of the film, I read the comic books, and they were fantastic. So as soon as these announcements were made, I was intrigued, I was excited, I was invested. Ragnarok. I've never read Ragnarok as a story, but the other side of Ragnarok was Planet Hulk. And Planet Hulk I had read. And so again, that excitement was there. But then, over time, the comics side of things, right, because this is a business. Now, you've got to understand that the comic side of sales in comics are like a fraction compared to film, right? So you're talking about a marble against the moon, so to speak. So that's your comic books. The moon, maybe a bit excessive with the moon, but you know what I'm saying, right? Comic books are a minute part of it. Films are massive. So what happens then is that the comic side of things look at the films, right? And now the MCU has generated a comics industry within Marvel where almost every title has to be based upon the film. If you get a film or a new TV show coming out, you're guaranteed that you've got a comic book that will, of that title, that character, to see it through. When Guardians of the Galaxy came out, there was a wealth of Guardians of the Galaxy comics. I mean, I'm talking like Rocket Raccoon and Groot had their own, Star-Lord had his own comic, as well as a Guardians of the Galaxy comic itself. There were so many, there was a main title and all these offshoots for the individual characters. It just got stupid and out of control. And I didn't read any of them, I'll say that, right? But not only that, whereas before, what happened was that the films took the comic characters and they redesigned them and worked them to their own, how they wanted them to look in a sort of real world setting. We then get to a point where later on the comic books then start following the films or the TV shows, and the characters in the comics start looking a lot more like their film counterparts. So you had this situation where you had the comics, you had the films feeding from the comics, and now you've had the comics feeding from the films. Yeah? So, from a business perspective, I totally get this. I totally get what Marvel's doing, because like I said, the sales on the comics are minuscule. The sales on the films, or the viewing ticket sales on the films are massive compared to the comics. So let's try and attract more buyers to the comics who are the film watchers. So we model the comics around the films with the look of the characters, some of the support cast, all this sort of a thing. We'll tie them into the releases, you know. There's a new She-Hulk TV show, so we'll start a new She-Hulk comic, you know, that sort of a thing. Guardians of the Galaxy, like I said, so we'll have Guardians of the Galaxy comic. Thor, you've got Jane Foster in the Thor outfit, so we'll do, you know, even though that was copied from the comics, but we'll bring her back and have her series for her again. Agent Carter, or, you know, or not Agent Carter as she's known in, you know, in What If, Captain Carter. We'll do a Captain Carter comic. You know, there's all this sort of stuff going on. So you're at a point where the comics are feeding from the films. The only issue with that now is that the films have got nothing to draw from, or very little to draw from. Yeah, there is going to be some drawing, like if we do get a World War Hulk film, I'm sure that'll be fantastic, because you've got the World War Hulk comic book, which I'd love to see adapted. It's really good. But that's it'll be completely different though what they do, because of the setup with the Illuminati in the comic and all this sort of stuff. But there's still stuff to draw from. But the stuff to draw from is becoming less and less, because the newer comics are dictated by the films, whereas the comics used to take from or the films used to take from the comics. You see where I'm going with this, right? So for me, as a comic collector and reader, I don't read too much Marvel stuff now, I'll be honest. But when I do read Marvel stuff, I generally steer towards the stuff that is less related to the films or the TV. I do read She-Hulk, but, you know, I'm more intrigued by that stuff, because I know I'm getting something that isn't dictated by the films, and I don't want to read comics dictated by the films, because I find them to be uninteresting, uninspired, and all this sort of a thing. So this is what I'm talking about with the negative effects of the MCU. And this is something that I have been aware of for a very, very long time. And it's something that, you know, I could have done a video on this when I first started the channel. But no, I've sort of left it until now for an episode of this. But I've wanted to talk about it for some period of time. But there we go. So that's it. That's what I'm talking about. The negative effect of the MCU. And that's just my thoughts on it. What do you think? I mean, I appreciate the fact that not many of my viewers here are going to be actually comic readers. So this is something that you won't have realised. But, you know, as you've seen with Phase 4 of the MCU, I will say this, you've probably seen a decline in the films. A lot of people have, you know. You've had Black Widow, which, although it was about 10 years too late, it wasn't fantastic. Still coughing, my breathing's bad. You had Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi, again, from my perspective, wasn't overly fantastic. You had Eternals, not overly fantastic. You know, even, I mean, alright, this is an unpopular opinion, yeah, but Spider-Man, No Way Home, or whatever it was called, that latest one, right, with the 3 Spider-Men in, I can't rewatch it. Can't rewatch it. I'm not inspired to go and watch it again, and I don't know why. I find it a very, you know, it wasn't a bad film, don't get me wrong, it's not my favourite Spider-Man film, but there's something about it that I find tough to rewatch. Doctor Strange I was fine with, but it does feel like it's lacking something, there's something missing, an element. And Thor Love and Thunder, again, you know, it was like a step backwards for the Thor franchise. Now, a lot of these characters, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, all this sort of a thing, they've not had a prolific comic book run. Yeah? They've not had, you know, you've got characters out there that have been going for years and they've just been sort of subpar storytelling. They've not had a storyline that has just gone bam and stayed in the consciousness of people like the Winter Soldier did, or like Civil War did, or like Planet Hulk did, or World War Hulk. You know, they haven't had that. They're just currency. You've got nothing to really draw from. So your palette is empty when you start. Your canvas is empty when you start. Whereas with these films, you're working on the backstory of an infamous story. You know, you haven't got that. And these films are lacking for that very reason. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Let me know what your thoughts are on the current state of the MCU down below. Are you still enjoying it or aren't you? Let's have a friendly conversation, a lively conversation, and let's talk about it. I will reply to all comments, so please consider hitting the subscribe button, notification bell, coming and joining the channel. And in 2 weeks' time, I will be back for another episode of AJ Chats. And unless something else comes up in the meantime, another topic that is hot and relevant, I'm going to be taking a look at collectors versus speculators. Two different ways of collecting, and do they work or don't they? Primarily the speculating side of things. But anyway, it's AJ. I'll see you later, and take care all and have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.